This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, today I have Terry Ogburn with me, and he's going to talk to us about his career, how he got started, what he works on now, and he has some interesting stories to share about taking a company public and a bunch of other interesting things. So thanks so much for being on the show today, Terry.
Oh, thank you, Gabe, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I always start out with, like we chatted before we started recording here, I don't really have a fixed format for these shows yet. Maybe I'll figure it out in the future, but I kind of like just to learn conversationally and kind of learn about folks. But one thing I always do ask is, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I'm not sure if I really realized that I was an entrepreneur, but I can tell you that the first business plan that I put together was for my dad, and I must have been about 12. I wanted a bicycle, and he said, well, how are you going to pay for it? And my idea was I could get a paper route. Mm-hmm. And so he said, okay, well, tell me how much, how we're going to work this out, type thing. And I made a nickel per customer for delivering their paper a week. Now, this is old school stuff. And so I had to figure out how many nickels that I was going to be able to give him, and then I could go out and get more business and stuff. So that, and then the next one was a lawnmower business. And then, so I guess since I was a little kid, my dad always wanted me to go out and be like a salesperson. He would he would get me, sign me up for Grit magazines or these door-to-door stuff. And ever since I was a little guy, he would send me out. and I think today, if I was looking back at that, it would be just so I could know how to meet people, shake their hand, introduce myself. That's what he wanted me really to do. And so yeah. The first business I had was in outside of that, real business was an air conditioning company in 1979.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of the guests that have been on the show and a lot of people that I've researched or follow or kind of are my in-person or virtual mentors all started out with like paper routes or selling things door to door, or guest I had on yesterday. He started out in a college painting company. Like there's 3 or 4 major ones, like college painters, and they go around and they knock on doors and find business and paint houses. And years ago, I've only had 2 jobs in my life because I'm not very employable, I like to tell people. But years ago, for one of the jobs I did have, I for a short time worked at a repossession company, helping a guy turn around the company. And I always tell people, knocking on doors to sell something is one thing. Knocking on doors to take somebody's car is a completely different story.
Yeah, I would imagine. You could get shot at doing that.
Exactly. It's reverse sales, is what my friend says. That I have a friend that I've known since I actually hired him to be the general manager there before I left, and he's like, oh, collections and repossession, it's just reverse sales. I was like, oh, okay. But
well, you gotta figure out how to put a spin on it for sure. I love when I was in sales, I did love going door to door. I've been escorted out of buildings, strong armed out of buildings, type thing. Somebody asked me one time, I was training some salespeople, and they said, when the guy said, well, when do we stop calling on them? And I said, when you get a restraining order against you.
That's right. And that's it. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. And I think that there's in today's world, there's this, we have this kind of desire for everything to be as easy as our smartphone or our computer, just click and it works. And that's not how you build relationships, and that's not how you sell. And yes, there's like chat bots and there's AI and all these things that are going to help us move forward in that. But I think that folks that are willing to kind of overcome their fears, because as you know, it's not easy to walk up to that door the first time. It's not easy to walk into the big building where you might get thrown out. There's always a little, for me at least, there's always a little bit of fear when I'm selling. But if you can just teach yourself to overcome that or get used to it or enjoy the process, then your potential is unlimited. Whereas if you're trying to always find a workaround of how to sell something without selling, I don't know. That just seems like it's never going to work. But anyway, my point was, where I got off track is that I think it's really interesting that a lot of the successful business people that we've had on the show and people that I follow, and even like people like Mark Cuban, they sold stuff door to door as a kid, and my son just turned 6, and I'm going to teach him how to sell things door to door because I want him to have exactly what you said your dad was probably trying to teach you, how to meet people, shake their hands, build relationships, and just acquire a skill that's invaluable and could serve you for the rest of your life.
You know who else? Of course, a lot of people. But did you know that Warren Buffett, at 5 years old, did the same exact thing?
I think I heard that. What did he sell? I forget.
His family was in the grocery business.
Okay.
He was born in 1930, and they were in the grocery business. And so for him to earn money, they would give him those little packs of Wrigley's gum. Remember the little small nickel packs, When he would go around door to door and sell these packs of gum for a nickel, he bought them for 3 cents, and he made 2 cents on each pack. And one lady, according to the story, one lady said, "I'll buy a stick of juicy fruit gum from you for a penny." Mm-hmm. And he turned it down because he calculated that he'd have to find 4 more people with the exact same taste and need that for him to make his 2 cents. It was too much effort.
Wow, I've never heard that story. That's interesting.
That's in his book called The Snowball. If you ever get a chance to get the book or whatever, it's called The Snowball, and it's a great read by Alice Schroeder wrote it, and it's a biography on him. You'll learn a lot of some deep secrets about his personal world, his personal life, and things like that. So it's a very good book.
I'm always looking for things to read, so thank you. That's awesome. So you started out with your dad kind of teaching you how to get out there and sell, and then you mentioned that your next business was the air conditioning service business. And your story that you kind of shared some notes with me resonates with me because when I moved to Chicago, which I think was, it's almost like 12 or 13 years, maybe 15 years ago now. It was right after I had lost my construction business in the housing market crash, and I got stuck for a bunch of money, and I moved to Chicago, and I had $100 in my pocket, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch. And then I built what is today Business Marketing Engine from that startup. So I love your story because you said you started with $118.42. Start us there and tell us kind of why you decided to start the business with your massive capital on hand, and then where it went from there.
And it's probably, as you can relate, when I started it people said I was crazy, and all that stuff. But what had happened was I was in the car business and selling cars. And I was very good at sales and even selling cars. I was considered to be either number 1 or number 2 in the Chevrolet world and won a couple of awards and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to get promoted, and I have this baby face. And, it's just hard when you have this young-looking face to get any respect. That's the way I felt, And so I went and applied at another GM company to be a sales manager. Of course, I was turned down, and my boss found out about it. He wanted to teach me a lesson, so he fired me. So, and in the car business, at that time, you didn't have you had demo, I had a demo, and so they paid the insurance, they paid all that stuff. So all I really had was my dry cleaning bill, my bar bill, and my rent and my thing. So I paid up my rent and utilities, phone, everything. Now you got to think about this. My rent was $135 a month. My electric bill was $35 a month. My phone bill was $25 a month. So for $200, I'm done, right? So,
wow.
And the apartment complex I was living in had a broken furnace duct. It had to do with where they put the duct heater in, and then they'd open it up to fix it, and then I had to, leave the duct broke. And so you buy a condo, and I'd walk in and I'd say, "Gabe, let me show you something." I open the furnace room, and there I said, "I can fix that for $15. And you say, "Well, it needs to be fixed. It's broken." So, my idea was that would be 264 condos. And that $15 times that would be around roughly about $4,000. And then I could lay out by the pool and enjoy and figure out what I wanted to do and, how to get going. And so one of the guys that bought a condo there was Jim Foxworthy. Now, Jim Foxworthy is the father of Jeff Foxworthy, but he was also the regional president for IBM.
Oh, okay.
So that was my first mentor. So he kind of took me under his wing, and he started sharing with me how to do things. And then that's when the business started to expand. I got a truck and started doing more advertising and started listening to him. So it's really good to have your next door neighbor be the regional manager for IBM. So that's literally, it was my next door neighbor. So then my ambition took off. Mentors, I started learning more about how that you have to work on the business instead of working. I made all the mistakes that everybody makes. You're the technician trying to make it all work. And so then I learned how to work on the business. And by 1983, I had developed a pretty good air conditioning business and was nominated for Small Businessman of the Year. And I made it to the top 5, didn't get all the way there, but that's okay. And then the next year, I won Outstanding Young Businessman of the Year for the state of Florida. So that maybe I lost the local one, but I got the big one. So anyway,
yeah.
And so then I started in 1985. I started helping other businesses to stop the mistakes that I was making, that I made, all the pitfalls. And by that time, as you see from my sheet, books had come into my life like the E-Myth, Think and Grow Rich, and Seven Habits were part. All of that was coming out around that time, and or some of them before that. But I started to think, wow, this can be a recipe. I can make this all work. So then I sold my company to my employees, and that was another thing. It was relatively new in that day, but you could get more money out of your company if your employees bought it. So that was what that happened. Then in 1989, I drifted into the corporate world with my system, my processes, the things that I had developed, and I took it on the road. And that's where we ended up me going to work with Uniglobe Travel, and then that led to me being wooed to Miami to get board to be part of the startup that went public.
Very cool. You mentioned one of my all-time favorite entrepreneurial books, which is the E-Myth. I read that in the mid-90s when I was starting up one of my first businesses, and that probably had the biggest impact on me. I still think about things the concepts were inside of that. It's definitely a really powerful book. And so talk to me about how you started out, like everybody does, being the technician and just kind of figuring out the work, and then you move to a position where later on you're selling the company to your employees, which means you've obviously graduated from being a technician to working on the business. What kind of mindset shifts had to happen, and what were kind of the steps that occurred where you shifted that? Because I feel like success as an entrepreneur is like 99% in your head sometimes.
It is.
I mean, there's actions you have to do, but like most of my struggle is mental, of trying to figure things out. So what were some of the pieces that took you from being I can fix that vent guy to figuring out how to sell your company? Like, that's a pretty big progression. Were there any milestones or markers, or were there big aha moments in that process?
Oh, there was, Gabe, a tremendous amount. The growth spurt from 1983 to 1987 was phenomenal in that area. Okay, and the reason for that was, if I had an advice to give to your listeners, the thing that we need to do most is listen. Okay, and we need to listen to our customers, because my belief is the customer is the boss. So I just rearranged everything, and I started trying to figure out how to do it differently. And you're getting into a world of air conditioning. You imagine 1979 in Florida. I shouldn't have been able to even start an air conditioning business. It should have been already captured the market. Everybody was done. Right. But the industry, the things I would hear was things like, we get as much money from the first time because they're never going to call you back. I said, well, I can fix that. And so my belief system is find them, keep them, and get them to spend more money. So I would figure out ways like, I don't know if you have it where you're at, but when I got in the business, there was an air conditioning checkup. So that people would put out advertisements to do checkups. I said, well, the homeowner doesn't understand checkup. Let's change it to tune-up. So I came up with the idea of AC tune-up. Now, people can relate to getting their car tuned up, so it's an engine, so it's the same thing. So another thing that I noticed was that, because I was a serviceman first, I had to go out there. And so what I noticed was that when you get to the unit, you'd have to take all these screws out to, remove the panel so you could work on it, and nobody would ever put the screws back. And they would just put, well, of course, they only need one or two. I get it. Okay. Right. You don't need them all in. Okay. But so one of the things I did was got my crew there's only two size screws, 1/4 and 5/16. So I just got them a box and said, look, guys, just put all brand new screws everywhere you can. Take one out, put one in. It only takes a couple minutes. Take a little can of Kiwi wax and wax the unit down a little bit. When the homeowner comes home and the husband comes home, he comes around the corner, he's going to go, wow, these guys really did something. They didn't just come out here and fleece me out of my money. Yeah. Another thing in air conditioning that I learned by listening was that the wants and needs of a customer was, I guess, the first time I was introduced to that. See, a customer needs their air conditioning fixed, but do you know what they want? They want me to fix it on their time schedule.
Yeah.
We're all like that, right? Because we're busy, we're running 90 miles an hour. So when I went to my technicians and I said, guys, how do we make this happen? They said, we can't. We don't know if we're going to be on the job an hour or we're going to be on the job, 5 hours. Well, I have to be honest. I bought into that for a moment. Okay. And then I said, okay, well, wait a minute. We got to figure a way out to do that. So what I did was I took the scheduling out of the technician's hands and I put it in the dispatcher's hands. Okay. So I got this lady, and so they had to get permission to work on your unit. So if they couldn't fix it in an hour, okay, that's all the time they had. So they would go to you and say, well, Gabe, your fan motor's out. It's going to take about 3 hours for us to fix this. When would you like us to do it? Well, if you could do it now, that would be great. Well, if you could come back when my wife is here, that would be even greater. That would be the kind of conversations that would happen. Gotcha. And then the serviceman would go back and coordinate with the dispatcher when we could get a truck out there to fix it. Now, I didn't always mean that same guy came back out there to fix it. It just we would just route our guys that way. At the end of it, I had 26 trucks and 12 people. So I had something really strong to sell. And of course, going with this attitude, what happened was your customer stayed with you. Mm-hmm. So when I was able to sell my business, I was able to evaluate that I had 7,000 customers that had done business with me for 3 years or longer. Well, that's a lot of money in value to what your business is, because if they're that long, and I didn't take into consideration anybody that hadn't been on board 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was going to be another wave of business. And people, they came to know Buccaneer was named after the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they come to know that and it actually became like a household word. You were like almost like nuts if you didn't call Buccaneer. I mean, that was the kind of, we'd be crazy if we called anybody else out here type thing,
Wow, that's very cool. Great points and great advice too about listening, because I always tell people, like, when you get on a sales call, when I train my sales staff, I'm like, if you just listen, the prospect will give you all the keys to sell them whatever they need. And it's like it's definitely very, very important to listen, and you probably get this too. You can't sell anybody anything, and I think your listeners, if they are trying to sell them, my suggestion would be to stop trying to sell them, and then get them to buy. See, the definition of a sale is to create an entity in sufficient form that someone takes it from you. If we have children, if any of your listeners have children out there, every one of us have sat down with a 6-month-old child and flew an airplane, turned a spoon into an airplane, and that goes along with it, right? Create an entity in sufficient form that someone takes it from you. So, and then once they take it, then you keep putting stuff in front of them until they stop buying. That is a much better way of looking at it. I've never had anybody explain it that way.
When I was at Radio Shack, we implemented a rule there that we had this 30-2-2 rule. You had to greet the customer within 30 seconds of the time they walked in the door. So all stores had a little bell on it. So when you opened the door, you would make this chime or some noise would happen. Mm-hmm. Their responsibility was turn to the customer, greet them, and then ask them 2 open-ended questions. And it couldn't be, can I help you? Something like that. It had to be something like, how's the weather? How's your day? Get the conversation started. And they had to leave with 2 things in the bag. Huh. And that was important in that world. And each business has their own little caveats. But because most of the stuff at Radio Shack, doesn't come with the batteries. Well, what would happen is if you didn't offer them the batteries, then they were mad at you.
Right, because they forgot the
this
batteries.
This guy knew, and I'm home and I don't have the batteries, So you would always, want to offer headphones or batteries or whatever it was. And lo and behold, we would actually get, customers have 2, 3, 4 things in the bag when they leave. And we just would continue to get our sales up in each store.
That's very cool. So did they bring you in as a consultant, or were you working there as a manager? Tell me more about that.
Oh, that's a great story. I just, after the company had gone public in Miami, I had moved up to Boca, and the idea was I was trying to find something to do. Obviously, I was getting a little money, residual money coming in from the sale. But Bill Gates had bought Philip Magnavox. I don't know if you know about that or remember anything about that, but he created the web TV. Okay, mm-hmm. That was the first thing. So if you had a TV, you could hook it all up, and then you could, channel surf through that. And if you had CompuServe, you could tie it all in. And I thought I was going to make $1 billion selling these web TVs with it because I found somebody to host a website for, that type of stuff. So I got it all down to this one little piece, this little connector that I was missing to put these seminars on and so forth. So I go to Radio Shack to get the connector. And so I explained to the manager, she was a nice lady. And so I was telling her what I was doing. She goes, "No, man, you don't need to be doing that. You need to be working with us." And I said, "No, I can't handle pencil pushing, pocket protector people. No, I'm not." She said, "Oh, no, we're not like that. You need to go talk to my boss." And I said, "Okay." So as a courtesy to her, she got set up an interview, and I went and talked to this guy. So a couple of days later, I go in there. Of course, I'm suited up. I'm everything, So I'm sitting there, and I got about this much attention span about doing it. I got my own goals, but I was doing it for her. So we're sitting there, and so the guy said something to me. "Okay, let me ask you a question." He says, "There's a customer in my store, and he's asking about the answer machine. And so, the price of the answer machine is $79. And he says to you, he needs to go home and think about it. What would you say to him?" And Gabe, what I said and what I meant were totally two different things.
Okay.
What I said was, what is there to think about? Because I don't know what there is to think about an answer machine. It either works or it doesn't work. There's not a whole lot to think about it, right? So I said, what is there to think about? He goes, "Hold on a minute. Do you have some time?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I got the regional guys here, and I want him to talk to you." So he comes. So next thing you know, I'm on board as this guy, and they thought that was a closing question. I was, to put him in a closing. I don't know. Wow, I didn't really intend it for that to be, but if it landed me this job, then that. So I was hired to come into. Basically, it was 3 stores. I didn't know how many stores it was going to be, but basically I was brought in to turn around 3 stores and create a system that they could do a turnaround concept with. So the first store that they put me in, the average age was 77 years old that lived in the community. And here we are in a electronics store.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was my first tackle. But anyway.
That's crazy. So what did you sell that community? Because that's like on the non-techie end of the spectrum, right?
It was interesting. So the second day I was in the store, I was standing next to the manager in I'm just kind of scoping things out. Because I usually, when I go into a company, I want to look at things for a couple weeks and before I start making suggestions or how to do something. Because I just want to come in as the warlord guy, So we were standing there, and this one of those little short buses, a couple of these little short buses pull up, and these elderly, people start coming off the thing with their walkers and canes and stuff. And so the manager says to me, "Look, here comes the night of the living dead." And I said, "Well, I can fix this right now. I can fix this store right now." And he goes, "How's that?" And I goes, "Change your attitude." I said, "Do you know that these people, this may be their only outing of the day, and they've chose to come here. Now, I noticed that there's a bagel shop just down the way a little bit. Why don't we go get some bagels and have bagels and coffee for them, and we'll make this a destination for them so they would come." And so we did. We just went and cut up little bagels and little cream cheeses and stuff, and had it all on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when they came. Well, that took off, and these elderly people, I would say, okay, sell this, and I'd say, okay, if you can't hook it up, I'll come home, I'll come by your house and hook it up for you. And that's what got this whole thing started. And they would tip me $5 usually to come there and hook up their answer machine or their phone or whatever it was. And I was having fun with it. And I'll share one quick story with you. It turned out he was 82 years old. And he wanted to help his wife. He wanted to watch TV, so he needed a wireless headphones, so his wife could sleep and so he could listen to TV type thing. So, of course, they're independent people, they really are. And so I said, would you like me to come help you with it? And he goes, no, I got this, So here it comes about 3 days later, all coming back to me in this bag, And so he said, it won't work in my building. And I said, would you like me to try? He goes, no, I've had all the guys in the building look at it. And he says, I said, well, just for me, it won't cost you anything. Can I just come by and check it out? And all it was a frequency thing in the back that you had to adjust. And we tuned it in and it worked and everything. Well, lo and behold, that turned out to be a personal friend of Mr. Roche, who was the chairman of Radio Shack. I have his handwritten thank you note that he sent directly to Mr. Roche, and that trickled down through all the high management, all the way down to and back to the store manager, which, of course, he got the credit for, but that's okay. But, yeah, so little things like that of listening and just being part of the community, just be out there and participate, just get involved.
Yeah. Lots of great advice and good, good thoughts there. I think one thing you shared that is great advice is, making your place of business a destination, making it somewhere, on top of what people may buy there or do there, making it somewhere fun to come or making it a great destination. And that can apply, I think, not just to a brick and mortar business, but to a website, to an online service, anything, figure out what other value you can add on top of it instead of like the manager was dreading those people coming in. He just didn't see the opportunity, and it was, something that you pointed out, and that's a great, great advice. And also, like, a theme that I keep hearing you talk about is just taking good care of the customer. That's all it is.
You got to.
It's the simplest thing in the world, but if you do that, then you get referred, and people, and you get a note from the higher ups, which is just kind of a nice feather in your cap. But it's proof that you're doing the right things, because it does grow the business, and like you said, it builds. You're a part of the community, and you become somebody that they can trust. Like, going back to your story about how you built the air conditioning business, doing the little extra things of like, waxing the unit, putting all the screws in, like all those little details make a huge difference, even if the consumer may not consciously see it or consciously think about it, because everybody else is doing half a job basically compared to what you were doing. When you do it, it does stand out, and they really they really notice and pay attention, which is awesome.
And one other thing, if I can camp onto that for a moment, I also believe too that every action that we do, the universe looks at us or sees it, so to speak. And if we're out there doing good and we're trying, even though we keep running into brick walls, all of a sudden an opportunity will open, and it's a gift. We used to call them lay downs and different things, and all of a sudden, you've been rejected all day, and you're right at the last door, you knock on it, and then all of a sudden this guy gives you a $500 deal or type thing, Right. So there is a part to it that you develop your system, your regiment, whatever that is, and just keep following it. And if it's a success, if you've had success with it, just keep doing it, because, in fact, I can give your listeners a 4-step thing right now today that if they just remember to do this, it doesn't matter what situation they're in. Do you mind if I share this?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. The first thing is, whatever you decide that you want to do, you first have to make the decision. That's commitment, not just, I think I want to go to the store. I mean, I'm going to the store, type thing. I am really committing to this decision. and you have to weigh out all the different cells on a call earlier today. And you got to be like Socrates. You got to think through everything. You want to think through the whole process. Make sure your decision is correct. That's the avenue you want to go down. Then step 2 is you have to be disciplined about the things that are in your life to make your decision come true. So in other words, you can't be at the beach wanting to build a business and expect the business to work. You got to be disciplined with what you got to be, like you said, present. You got to be in the game here. And then you'll start to figure out what disciplines need to stay in place. Whether you're like when you train, work out, you have discipline. Then the third step is to make sure that you're decisive about the disciplines or the things that you have to do, your goals. In fact, I tell everybody that works with me, I give you permission to procrastinate on anything that is taking you away from your goals. So if you're not on your goals, then you can procrastinate on it. I don't care. You can do whatever it is. And then the big and most important piece to this 4-step process is you have to visualize the outcome well before we start. Okay, so when you make the decision to be, let's say, a time management, okay, then you visualize you being the best person at time management or the best person at sales or the best person at whatever your chosen craft is. So you put those 4 things in place. Remember we think in pictures, so the more that we have visually around us, whether it's affirmations or whether it's just ornaments. I have a little glass enclosure thing sitting on my desk, and it's got a Nike golf ball that sits in there, and all it doesn't say Nike on it. It just has the swish. Yeah. Well, everybody knows what the swish means, right?
Yeah. Just do it. Yep.
So you don't think you're thinking, but sometimes I'll be thinking, I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll go like, yes, last night was the same thing, I said, well, let me just go ahead and finish this now, get it over with, But those little things that trickle into your subconscious really help you. So visualization is one of my best tools that I would recommend to anybody.
Awesome.
Vision boards. You come into my condo, my whole house is a vision board.
Nice.
Everything I want is on the walls.
That's awesome. So it's decide, be disciplined, be decisive, and envision where you're going.
Exactly. Think with the end in mind.
Cool. And how did you? It's pretty interesting. I hear a lot of people talk about vision boards and affirmations and things like that, which I really believe in. They've made a huge difference in my business. How did you first stumble upon those, or decide that's how you needed to think, or what was that like?
I guess the turning point for me was Think and Grow Rich, in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Again, somebody recommended me to read that book, and the first thing that I read in the book was probably the most intriguing part, and that's where he explains that inside the book there's a secret. It's not told to us. It's not laid out for us to see it. It's mentioned over 100 times, and we have to. And when we get it, we'll get it. Well, I read the book 4 times before I got it, and because I was on that quest, I said, "There's a secret here, and I don't know it yet." Yeah. So after reading that book, inside there, he talks about vision boards. He talks about imagination. He talks about belief in yourself. He talks about all of specialized knowledge and all the stuff that you're supposed to have. Okay. And so I just looked at those 13 steps, those principles that he had laid out, and then I just started putting those principles in my life. So faith in myself, desire is nothing more than your want backed by a why that will produce the result you're looking for. So if you just put it all together. So that was the first instrumental book that I really laid out. Then there was other people like Earl Nightingale that talked about recognizing an opportunity, and then you got to see, that's where your creativity comes in as an entrepreneur. You got to see something that's not there. You got to put it together like an artist. My rule for an entrepreneur or CEO, I should say, most people, I think, they claim themselves as being an entrepreneur, but I don't know that everybody is a true entrepreneur. And a true entrepreneur is somebody who can look at a situation, recognize the deal, if there's a deal in there, and then act upon it. It may not have all the pictures, you may not have all the pieces, it may be the biggest mountain, but if you can see it, if you can vision, oh, I get that, okay, then you're a true entrepreneur. So, I ask people sometimes, who is the entrepreneur on Shark Tank? Well, they'll say, well, the guy's bringing the goods and services on. I don't know that they're entrepreneurs. I know the 5 people that are sitting there are entrepreneurs because they can recognize the deal.
They're deal
and
makers.
They know whether they're going to be in it or not be in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a good deal or it's a bad deal. It's just it doesn't fit their wheelhouse. It doesn't work with that. So you have to learn. To me, Tony Robbins says it's the best. Constant and never-ending improvement. Yeah. Just think of it this way for a moment, Gabe. I started Friday. I'll be in business 12 years.
Wow.
Okay, so you back up 12 years. Okay, so that puts us back to like 2005, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. How much changes in the web have happened in 12 years, right?
Everything.
Now, if I would have been stuck in 2005 and said, "Oh, don't worry about that Facebook thing. That's a fad. Oh, don't worry about LinkedIn. That's not going to go anywhere either." Well, I wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah.
So I just got on podcasts. Got on podcasting not even a year ago. Well, I know it's been around a while, but I could have said, "Well, I don't need to be on podcasts," but I guess I do need to be on them, right?
Yeah.
So. And I'm very proud to say another thing, just I'll put in a little tidbit here. I started a podcast for the Shriners organization. They've never had, and we just got our iTunes channel over the weekend.
Very cool.
But I mean, that's an old group of people.
Yeah.
Trying to get them to think about a podcast that, 80, the average person is like 75 years old, But anyway.
That's real sales.
Yeah, that's real sales, yeah.
Yeah, that's something, little side note, but I've learned that working in nonprofit organizations is how you really develop your sales and leadership ability. Because it's not like being on a board or being in an organization and like that, where it's not just a straight one-to-one business transaction. That's where you really learn to deal with people. So that's why I say that that's not an easy feat.
So, but anyway, it's just listening, paying attention, trying to figure it. Now, CEO's responsibility, in my world, they only have 2. Okay. When I talk to an average person, they say that they're the CEO. And I say, well, okay, tell me what your job responsibility is. What do you do? And every time, Gabe, they will describe the chief operating officer. Yeah. Their conception is that the CEO only has 2 responsibilities, and they have a lot of tasks or they have things to do. But their only responsibility is the vision of the company and being able to communicate that vision to their team, period. Okay. And the second thing is solve problems. And if the problem doesn't relate to the vision, it's not your problem, dude. You got to delegate that out. You got to give it to the right person. Like you have a marketing company. I don't have a marketing company. I have a consulting company, right? Or a development company.
Right.
Well, when I want to hire somebody, as you asked, well, how did you? Well, I hired somebody because I don't know that world. And nor do I want to try to learn it.
True.
So hire the people that you need to come in and take you to the levels. And sometimes, like in the Miami thing, going public, we actually had to hire 3 accounting services before we could get to Deloitte and Touche, where that's where we wanted to be. But we had to hire 3 companies to clean us up, take us to one level, bring in another company, clean us up, get us to another level, get it cleaned up, get it finally fine-tuned perfect. Because every time you let go of accountant, you own them.
Yeah.
Right? Because that information they have is just to them. We hired 2 attorneys to write our franchise agreement. Yeah. The top attorney to write it and the top attorney to defend it. Well, you can't hire those 2 guys anymore because those are mine.
Yeah.
You could get the third if you want, but I got number 1 and number 2. So
yeah. Very cool. Talk to me more, share a little bit about what you said the consulting business is 12 years old now, which is congratulations. I'm coming up on, I just finished my 10th year in business with our company.
Well, congratulations.
So I know what I at least have seen some of the evolution of the internet like we talked about. But talk to me about what you do there, kind of how you help people grow their businesses, what kind of, how you're coaching and consulting with them, and then what type of people that you like to work with.
Mine is unique from the standpoint that I'm not a consultant, I'm not a coach. My target is business development. Okay, and that's a whole different ballgame. Yes, I am a coach. Yes, I am a consultant. I'm a therapist. I'm all of those things. But I focus my business on focusing on the bottom line of your business. Mm-hmm. So I contribute. I become an asset to your company rather than somebody that siphons money away from you.
That's a good explanation.
You'll keep me on board if I'm making money for you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the only company that I know of that actually offers a guarantee with their work. So if you hired me and we figured out what I'm supposed to do and you give me the money and we work on it and we do what we're supposed to do and it doesn't work, Gabe, I give you back your money because I'm not really in tune to your money. I want you to be successful because what's more important to me is that video testimony. I built my whole business on video testimonies. Wow. Anybody can go to my website, terryogburn.com. They can click on the testimony section, and you're going to find 6 or 8, 10 videos. I don't know. I have a person that does all that stuff. But there's at least 8 or 10 videos on, and they're not the same story over and over again. It'll be another little segment that I did. I contributed to their bottom line by 16% net profit after taxes. Wow. Okay. Well, when somebody hears that, another guy said, well, we passed each other for 3 years, and all of a sudden I sat down with him, wrote a business plan. He got $3.2 million.
Yeah.
Because he'd been working at it in the wrong way, trying to do it. I said, well, no, let's just get all the money up front and let's build it from the top down, right? So we did. We went out, got him over 3 million, 3.2 million, and he was able to launch his business, and he's got a very successful business today. And we took the worry of that bootstrapping concept up.
Yeah.
80% of the people that bootstrap their business up will fail. It's not me. It's just the way life is. 80% of businesses start, fail. However, most people don't know that if you build your business from the top down, you have a better than a 90% chance of success.
I did not know that. That's very interesting. So if you pre-fund it and set it all up and then start, then you're.
Because you know yourself, if you have money in the bank, you feel better, you feel good, and things are going to click for you. If you're stressing out, staying up late at night, worrying how to pay the bills, you just get into this rat race of this, I call it a hamster wheel. You're on this hamster. You step, no, got to go back to work now. Jump back on. And all this stuff. I'm a firm believer that you work backwards, figure out where it is you want to be and then figure out where you need to be, this way and so forth and work backwards. Yeah.
Cool. So is it all different types of businesses and industries? Like what type of people do you ideally like working with?
My ideal customer is somebody that wants to grow their business so that they have either multi employees, a ton of employees. I don't work very well with solopreneurs, somebody that really just have created a job, right, and they're just going to do their work. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But somebody like my guy in Chicago, he wants to, we created an umbrella company, 3 businesses that contribute to each other. We have an investment company, a contracting company, and a commercial cleaning company. So all of those kind of merged together. My pizza, got a guy in Iowa with a pizza company. I started with 1 restaurant. Now we got the second one going. The third one's going to open up in June of next year. We're going to be opening a barbecue joint in downtown. I helped him negotiate a deal with Blue Bunny Ice Cream. So now he's the consultant to Blue Bunny Ice Cream. I work indirectly with Blue Bunny Ice Cream. So I'm helping them they want to create a destination city. Lamar's, that's where Blue Bunny is located, and they want to create Lamar's as the destination city to where everybody will come, go through the ice cream plant and do that, have the little gift shop and have the little ice cream parlor and all that stuff there. So that's what I'm working on as well. So.
Very cool. So it sounds like people that are looking to scale up and have multiple businesses or grow one business to a large size, things like that.
You should always approach business from the standpoint that you're doing it to sell it. See, if you go into start a business with the idea of selling it, you'll structure it a whole lot different.
Yeah.
So that means that maybe you don't put your name on it. Maybe you, like me, you put Buccaneer Refrigeration on it because that's what they're going to buy.
Right.
Now, I met with a branding guy over the weekend, and he said, well, the first thing I do is change your name. I said, why? And he goes, well, and he gave me the cliche, well, you can't sell it. I said, no, I'm building my brand. This is me.
All right, you're not trying to sell
I want
this
my name attached to it.
Yep. No, fair enough. Yeah, everybody does that. I did that with my first business. I made it my own name, and it was like, it was something that I probably could have sold, but not. I set it up completely wrong, and then read the E-Myth later. So. Awesome. Well, this has been really valuable, Terry. I appreciate you spending time with us and sharing all your experience and all this fantastic advice. So thank you. If people want to work with you or connect with you, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Well, I also have an offer, if you don't mind. I'd like to offer your guest a free coaching session with me.
Okay.
Okay, it's a half hour, obviously no charge, no upsell, no pitch, nothing like that. I just really want to take some of your listeners or whoever would like to participate and really take a challenge they're having or something that they really are would like to get past or grow past. I'd like to take that challenge on. Simply go to my website, terryogburn.com, click on the Contact Us button. And, of course, the drop-down will happen. You just give me your name, email address, the challenge that you're having, or tell me you want to set up a time. Give me a way of contacting you, and I will reach out and we'll set it up. Also, you can connect with me as you did, and thank you very much for sending a friend request to me on Facebook.
Yep.
And also LinkedIn. They can connect with me through LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes, and that's a very kind offer. So we'll definitely, everybody who's going to be listening to this, definitely take Terry up on that. I'm sure that he can solve some problems, and just with his experience and just an outsider's perspective, I always find is valuable in my own business as well. So thanks so much for being on, Terry. We'll have you back on again soon in the future, okay?
I appreciate that, and also what energy you have, Gabe. I mean, I'm just, of course I get to spend some time with you here today, but I love your energy too. So thank you very much for having me on the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.